Thanks, Wing.
Hello and welcome, folks. I'm going to give everyone a minute or two to settle in. Thanks for being here and thanks for your patience. Welcome, everyone. I do want to get us started. Before the presentation, I have a little bit of sort of a, for the good of the order, introduction, which I think will give folks a little bit more time to come in and join the room. So, with that, I think I'll just go ahead and get us started. So, thanks for joining today. This is an information session for the Housing Bonus Alignment Project discussion draft. My name is Wayne Grabowski, and I support engagement at the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. The purpose of today's session is to share more detail about the project and the discussion draft. This draft represents initial project recommendations that are open to public feedback. Staff will present an overview of the project and the proposals you can find in the discussion draft. And also, to answer your questions and help inform your comments to the staff and comments on the discussion draft. This is not an opportunity to provide formal public testimony. Public comments must be submitted in writing via the MAP app, and we'll drop all the links and information on how to access that later in the presentation. We are going to ask that you hold your questions until after the presentation. If you need clarification on any points, you can note those down, or you can drop them in the chat, and we can return to that slide and the topic and your questions during the Q&A. So I want to let you know also that today's session will go until about 1 o'clock. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ariel.
Thanks, Wing. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. My name's Ariel Kane. I'm an economic planner at the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, and today I'm joined by Morgan Tracy, our senior planner, also at the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. We'll just jump into the project. Today, we hope to tell you about, the background, how this project came to be, the scope of the project, the changes that we're hoping to make, and the impacts that we hope the proposals have. And then we'll share some information about next steps, including how to submit those comments that Wing was mentioning. So as market and development trends shift, we know it's valuable to assess our code, how it's working, and how it should be improved at regular intervals and to meet current and future conditions. So this project aims to do that. We also hope to fulfill goals in our comprehensive plan and our housing production strategy, where we've identified the need for more specific housing types. This project fulfills one of the actions that was identified in the state-required housing production strategy. Community members and developers, as well as city analysis, identified specific types of housing that we needed to develop and committed the city to refining and coming up with a variety of strategies to meet those needs. And so this is one part of that. We identified the household needs and the housing needs analysis and housing production strategy as we look towards planning for the next 20 years. So we identified that probably about 80% of our new housing will be in multi-dwelling buildings. 40 to 50% of our new housing will need to be affordable at that 80% A area median income or less. We also know that about 23% of our households and new units are likely to have a member with a disability, an older adult, a child, or a larger family or household, or all of the above. However, we know that right now not enough new housing is being built in general, but with these household needs accounted for, especially specifically those affordable units, units with more than one bedroom and accessible units. While the other type of units are a bit self-explanatory, affordable, larger, just wanted to touch on what we mean by accessible housing because it'll come up through our proposals. In general, visitable, that bottom of that pyramid, is in our zoning code. It's our lowest level of accessibility. Other types of accessibility as you go up the pyramid increase the requirements within a unit and at a building. So routes to and within units, wider door widths, turning spaces for mobility devices, also things like grab bars. So the highest level of accessibility also might consider things like communications. Generally speaking, the building code requires type B, which we consider adaptable, especially buildings with an elevator, but usually at most a building is ever only required to provide 2% of units at type A or higher. So that type of unit that includes an accessible route, entrances, turning radiuses, and other parts of the unit as well. In general, we think more accessible units will mean more people have better and adequate access to the essential functions in their home. So here's just a couple of examples of what even higher level of accessibility might look like, including those lower storage spaces, roll under sinks, no step showers, etc. So we'll refer to accessibility a lot, and that type A unit is what we're often referring to. So the Housing Bonus Alignment Project is specifically a set of proposed changes that are increasing housing production by expanding our existing production bonuses to more zones, increasing their capacity by refining the floor area ratio, height, coverage, and incentivizing those specific unit types. So far, to get to this draft, we've conducted interviews with developers and advocates. We've also worked with an architectural consultant, as well as staff conducted a comprehensive code audit, pro forma feasibility testing, and prototyping to get to these proposals. In our next draft, we hope to use the public feedback, like things we hear today or the comments you submit, to get to our next draft. The scope of the project is citywide, but it's limited to multi-dwelling residential, so RM zones and commercial mixed-use zones, CM zones, as well as RX and CX zones. You might see these types of zones along larger corridors, such as Woodstock, 122nd, Division, Interstate. And these zones already have some of our existing bonuses. The project proposals do not impact the areas that are in that beige hue. So Central City and certain planned district areas, they have their own set of incentives, which either match or exceed the proposed bonuses. And right now at BPS, the Central City Code Alignment Project is addressing work that's happening in Central City, and that will be available for comment again too. In the scope of the project, we're talking about bonuses, but just to be clear, we're talking about zoning bonuses, the currency that we deal with in the zoning code. We are not talking about financial bonuses with this project. So we're looking at additional development in exchange for certain benefits. While there are many types of zoning bonuses across different jurisdictions, our zoning code primarily deals with additional floor area ratio, so that building square footage relative to size, additional height, so additional stories or how tall the building is, and building coverage. Right now, we have 6 bonuses in our RM and CM base zones. The first two, inclusionary housing and affordable commercial. Inclusionary housing is not included in this project scope as it has its own recalibration cycle, and affordable commercial is not a part of this project because it deals exclusively with that commercial space. The other 4 bonuses, deeper affordability, visitable units, 3-bedroom, and planned developments, were the focus of our analyses and proposals. So deeper housing affordability incentivizes units for low-income households when a development has 50% or more of the units as affordable. Of these bonuses, it's the most used, and it's mostly used by affordable developers. Visitable bonus is for units that meet that lowest level of accessibility, but allows folks with mobility disabilities to visit the first floor of a home. However, this bonus is not currently available to most multi-dwelling developments. 3-bedroom bonus has a 50% requirement that units must have 3 or more bedrooms, and also applies a 10-year affordability covenant on those units. Lastly, the plan development bonus functions as a small master plan site with added design requirements and incorporates energy efficiency and affordable units as well. Of these bonuses, only the deeper affordable bonus gets all 3 incentives, so that FAR, height, and coverage. There's been no documented use as far as we could tell since the adoption of the visitable bonus, and there's been limited use of the 3-bedroom and planned development bonus, prompting a need for review and deeper analysis. The analysis we've conducted is in the staff report in appendices, but Morgan will take us through the proposals that came from that analysis.
Great. Thanks, Ariel. I'm Morgan Tracy. I'm a senior planner with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. And just to cover this pretty briefly, the following slides will go into greater detail, but just to summarize, the 4 key proposals of this project are expanding where the bonuses are available, making the same suite of bonuses available both the multi-dwelling and the commercial mixed-use zones, increasing the capacity to earn bonuses by enabling multiple bonuses to be used in combination, making the bonuses more feasible to achieve by right-sizing the public benefit we're asking for, and a set of other fine-tuning changes to make it easier to implement the code. So the first proposal is pretty straightforward. We're expanding the bonuses to apply in more zones, except for the affordable commercial bonus, which Ariel mentioned, which is really limited for commercial uses. This proposal ensures the same type of housing bonuses that are available in the multi-dwelling zones will be available in the commercial mixed-use zones and vice versa. For example, by expanding the deeper affordability bonus to mixed-use zones, this will enable nonprofit housing providers to leverage their development sites in those zones. The other bonuses are likewise being expanded to apply to both the multi-dwelling and commercial mixed-use zones because accessible, affordable, and family-size housing is needed throughout all of these areas. The second proposal is intended to create more room so that multiple bonuses can stack on each other to deliver more of the kinds of units that Portlanders need. For example, in the current code, you can either obtain a bonus for inclusionary housing or for deeper affordable units or for 3-bedroom and visitable units, but you wouldn't get a bonus for doing all of those things. The proposal would allow the bonuses to be stacked on each other, which creates incentives for builders to produce multiple types of needed housing. From some basic site modeling, we found several cases where the current allowed floor area ratio already exceeded what was achievable by building heights and coverage. The proposal includes more bonus floor area across the multi-dwelling and commercial mixed-use zones, ranging from an increment of 0.5 to 1 to 2 to 1, depending on the zone. To provide for this additional floor area, this meant increasing building height or coverage, or sometimes both when the bonuses were being earned. Currently, bonus height is very limited in the mixed-use commercial zones and maxes out at 10 additional feet in the multi-dwelling zones. So these maximum height limits have been increased by 10 additional feet in most multi-dwelling zones, and larger increases of 20 to 35 feet proposed for the mixed-use zones. For building coverage, we increased the bonus in zones where the maximum was less than 85%, such as the RM1 or RM2 zones. This slide summarizes how those increments of additional coverage, height, and floor area were revised for each of the 4 bonuses. For the deeper affordability bonus, we basically made small adjustments, refinements. to the building coverage for zones that were already over the 85% maximum. For the accessibility bonus, previously only bonus floor area was included, and now this bonus includes a small increase in coverage as well as additional building height. Similarly, the multi-bedroom bonus is proposed to include a small increase in coverage and height in addition to the extra FAR or floor area. This bonus also includes another option where a project can earn incremental floor area for each 3-bedroom unit that is proposed, but that option would not come with the extra height or building coverage. And finally, for the plan development bonus, the building heights were tailored to better match the different site sizes that are being proposed, and building coverage was revised to a consistent maximum of 85% across all zones in those zones where the PD bonus is available. So our third proposal looks at balancing the public benefit, which are bonus requirements, with the proposed incentives, for example, the extra floor area, height, or building coverage for each of those bonuses. To make these adjustments, we looked at the previous use of the bonuses, analysis conducted with our consultant, feedback gathered from additional city experts, interviews with developers and advocates. In the next few slides, we'll provide a comparison of the current versus proposed requirements. But to start off, there are no changes proposed to the deeper affordability requirements, which, as Ariel mentioned, are 50% of the units proposed at 60% of the area median income. And this is the most frequently used voluntary bonus that we have. Next slide. For the accessibility bonus, the current bonus for enhanced accessibility is called the visitable bonus. As Ariel described, this is sort of the lowest level of accessibility. 25% of the units must meet this lower visibility standard, which is only applicable to projects that are not subject already to the building code's 2% type A unit requirement. The proposed accessibility bonus upgrades the level of accessibility features required and uses a more industry-wide type A accessibility standard. Still requiring 25% of the units, but now this allows the bonus to be usable for more building types like apartments and condominiums, rather than just townhouses or middle housing. For the multi-bedroom bonus, the current bonus requires a very steep 50% of total units to be at least 3 bedrooms and applies a restrictive covenant for affordability. As Ariel mentioned, we've seen limited use of this bonus, and we're expanding the bonus to include 2-bedroom as well as 3-bedroom units and reducing the number of units required from 50 to 25%. For the affordability measures, instead of a deed restriction, there will be a cap on the unit size. This is easier to administer and removes the need for those restrictive covenants. We are also making this bonus easier to use for smaller projects by allowing incremental additional floor area for each 3-bedroom unit being provided. The current plan development bonus, which is only applicable in some mixed-use zones and only on large sites, of which there are very few, maybe 50, requires 4 key additional elements: inclusionary housing, a public plaza, increased energy efficiency, and design review. The proposed plan development bonus would expand to the multi-dwelling zones and reduce the site size threshold to 40,000 square feet, which is still not many, but more. It's about 250 citywide. The same required site elements, but it adds a new layer of building height limits for those smaller site sizes, with an incentive to allow taller heights when the buildings are built using innovative mass timber construction. And our final proposal includes several fine-tuning revisions to the code in order to make the bonuses function better. The first off, for sites with more than 20 units, but where inclusionary housing is not required because no single building has more than 20 units, these bonuses will require the voluntary inclusionary housing bonus be used first. For the senior and disabled high-density housing chapter, we are deleting that chapter, as many of the same bonus types and incentives will now exist in those base zones that call for accessible and multiple bedroom units. We found that in the RM3 and RM4 zones, it was the increased setbacks of 10 feet versus a normal 5-foot setback for taller buildings that had more of an impact than building coverage on how many units could be built on a floor. Projects in these zones that earn bonus height will have the standard 5-foot setback applied. Similarly, step-down heights can impact how many units can be built on a floor. So in cases where bonus height is earned, the step-down height limit will not apply to the street side of a building, but will continue to limit building height in the portion of the site that abuts a single dwelling zone. Indoor common area can be substituted for outdoor area, but unlike the outdoor areas, there is currently no dimension requirements for those indoor areas. So these dimensional requirements are being added to ensure the indoor common area will remain more usable. We're also defining bedrooms in the code, as these are a key component of the multi-bedroom bonus, and will ensure that the units are constructed with true bedrooms and not lofts or mezzanines. And finally, we've added language to clarify that the bonus floor area in the CM2 zone can be earned both inside and outside the Main Street overlay zone to the same overall maximum amount. So just sort of making a clarification on that. And with that, I'll turn it back to Ariel.
Thanks, Morgan. We're coming to the end of our slides, but just wanted to highlight we had conducted a wide range of analyses, which are available in the staff report and appendices, but I wanted to highlight some of our results. Just the proposed bonuses had the desired outcomes that we were hoping for, enabling more units on more sites. They specifically were resulting in more affordable 2 and more bedroom units, as well as type A units. And we also found that bonuses, have the most positive financial impact when the additional density allowances are not pushing development into more expensive construction types. In terms of what this means for on-the-ground development, we just wanted to share a snapshot of some of the prototypes. These represents one of them modeled using our existing base zone requirements on the left, CM2. This is a mixed-use zone like you might find along Woodstock. And on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side as you continue along, it's what you might expect to be built using our bonuses. So these model a 10,000 square foot lot. Using today's base zone standards, you might be able to get around a 40-unit building, maybe 5 stories with some parking. The middle prototype shows the application of one of the bonuses, the proposed multi-bedroom bonus, where we see the site increase by about 10 additional units, most of them second bedrooms, and 2-bedroom units. And then lastly, when you add in that second accessible bonus, the total increase in units is around 17 units, most of those being the type A units. Overall, in the CM2 example, the financial feasibility was improved when meeting the proposed requirements and stacking the bonuses in that final prototype. When comparing to some real-world examples, from left to right, these are current day examples of 5 to 7 story buildings in our commercial areas. Just a note that these are on larger lots. We're seeing more recent development on our larger lots, but we have more typical small lots. In general, we are hoping that these changes will lead to greater utilization of the bonuses and help improve feasibility in the long term. And as a result, hope to see more of our needed unit types get built, including more affordable, larger, and accessible units. In terms of next steps and where we're at in the project, right now, as we mentioned, we're in the discussion draft phase. This is very early in the project, so now is a great time to get comments to staff so that we can respond to and make changes and have the best proposals when we get to Planning Commission. When we go to Planning Commission 2 and Council, there will be additional opportunity for public testimony. Our current timeline for staff comments is we hope to close Map App on March 23rd, so you still have a few more weeks to read the proposal and submit your comments. And we've just included a link here and a QR code if you'd like to scan as well. And that's the end of our presentation.
Great, thank you, Ariel and everyone. So we do have time for Q&A. We have about a half hour left. So can either raise your virtual hand and we'll call on you to unmute and ask the question, or feel free to drop your question in the chat. And just to make sure everybody understands how to raise your virtual hand, if you're on a computer, like a laptop or a desktop, at the bottom of the Zoom window, you might have to hover over the window, but you should see a button that just says raise hand. Depending on what version of Zoom you're using, you might have to select more, the 3 dots menu, and then you'll see the raise hand option. If you're on a phone, you should be able to also tap the three dots or more button and then select raise hand. And then on iPad, you can tap reactions at the top right and then choose raise hand. I'll drop that in the chat as well. Ava, I see your hand.
Hi. Sorry, I'm a little I don't know if my camera is not working, so I apologize. Um, I just had a quick question about well, right now I'm dealing with a constituent who's has some concerns about the three-bedroom bonus program. And so I have a few questions because the main thing seems to be that there's issues with like the home selling process, like if you're not building like a huge building and finding people to qualify to buy homes at 100% AMI, that they're having a hard time. And then they have an SDC waiver, which then has a different criteria of income. And I was just kind of wondering if there was any rationale for having like so many different programs with so many different like income restrictions that kind of seem to me that make things a little more complicated. And like what a person can do to like they can do if this is just like not working in a real world scenario, because like getting out of the program is the other issue that like I think he was advised was like $37,000 per unit, and this is not something that we've really given them money for. This is just a FAR bonus, right? It's adding an extra bedroom. So I kind of wonder if there was a consideration of these policies and like if it doesn't for some reason work out, the flexibility to correct that in this draft.
That's a great question. I think I can answer part of that.
I can't hear anything. Oh, I guess it's muted.
Can others hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you, Ariel.
Okay. Ava, let me know if you still can't hear, but I will try to answer part of your question and then welcome other staff to also answer. So the current three-bedroom bonus, yes, is only FAR, and it does have that affordability covenant. The proposal right now is hoping to remove that affordability covenant in part to remove some of the administrative burden of that. And then, sorry, the tech issue kind of distracted me a little bit, so I might forget to answer part of your question. Morgan, go ahead.
Well, it sounded to me like, Ava, it sounded like you were describing some of the Portland Housing Bureau programs for affordability, and some of the technical requirements for qualifying for SDC exemptions and those sorts of things. I will just say that the scope of this project is focused on the requirements that are levied to earn a particular bonus, such as that additional floor area. But when it comes to affordability, especially the programs that the Housing Bureau operates are administered by that bureau, and we've not included the specifics of those operation requirements as part of this project. But I think that the comments are still salient as we continue to have conversations with that bureau. And they are also looking to refine and enhance their programs moving forward. So if you have thoughts and suggestions on that, we certainly welcome that. Not that we can bring a proposal to amend the Housing Bureau's programs, but it is something that we can relate to that those staff.
Yes, thank you. And so, like, I guess just to make sure that I'm also receiving what you're saying, is this proposal touches on those programs that is more like the code requirements, like you must meet XYZ things, and not necessarily the other administrative issues.
Yeah, maybe an example would help. So if you're talking about the deeper housing affordability requirement, and it's 50% of the units have to meet the 60% AMI requirement. It also comes along with a requirement that you obtain a letter from the Housing Bureau that you've met their program requirements. So the number 50% of the units and that AMI level of 60%, that's what the code will establish, and the Housing Bureau will have additional rules that relate to comparable units and location of the units and all the sort of details of those kind of things.
Well,
so that's kind of the distinction.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you so much. And yes, I am specifically talking about the 100% AMI requirement, in that if you apply right now, developers get SDCs waived, but before you got like 120, we just have like different income requirements, which would make it really difficult to align selling product, and it's just difficult to navigate in general. And I was wondering, and I think perhaps maybe that requirement, I'd like to understand more about how you guys decided that going from 50% of units to 25% of units was the nexus for why this program is not being adopted, or if it's just that the program doesn't work. Is it the income requirements? Like, do you have that data? Or if it's not being used, should we just not have this program? That was my question.
Yeah.
No, go for it.
Yeah. So for the 3-bedroom bonus, one of the issues that we did hear come up was the income requirement. And so that is a part of our proposal. We are removing the income restriction from the 3-bedroom bonus. It's remaining in the deeper housing affordability only.
Okay. Awesome.
And just a little further, you noted the 50% reducing to 25%. We did some modeling with our architectural consultants and just noted that trying to fit that number of units really had an impact on the bottom line pro forma, and it also has this interesting ancillary effect, which squeezes more of what would otherwise be offered as 1-bedroom units into studios. And so we're trying to create a nice balance of unit types in a project. So lowering that 3-bedroom to 25% gives more opportunity for that diversity of unit types to be built.
Yeah. Thank you. And this project is actually not a multi-storied project. It's more like a condominium where they actually opted into 100% of them being the 3-bedroom bonus, but it's just been a problem of like that. But I'm glad to hear that the income thing is being addressed. So thank you guys.
Yeah.
And then my last question, though, because this has come up with the SDCs, is people who have previously, if we do make these changes, how do we ensure that that there's no like, well, we had to do this and now they have to do that? Like there's a reconciliation of these changes for previously contracted. Is that a PHB question?
Well, I think the technical answer, although it's probably not satisfactory, is your application is reviewed based on the time you submit it. So if you submit it under an old set of rules, that's the requirements that will apply to your project, unless you haven't pulled the trigger on that project and decide to reapply under the new rules. You're going to be subject to the previous rules that were in effect at the time you submitted your application. Does that help? It's like they call it the goalpost rule. So your application submittal sort of sets the requirements that apply to you.
I just think it's worth noting that right now we're having a proposal about the SDCs and about reconciling those two different programs and their requirements, because we're having a lot of community feedback about this. So just to keep that in mind, because it'll probably happen again with a lot of these programs, is I think there's probably should be like a fair period where if your items are still on the market or still under development, even under an old permit, that there ought to be a way to simply reconcile those for simplicity.
Yeah, I would suggest providing that comment. I think it's based on a prior project where we did something with the non-conforming upgrades. We tried to do a retroactive application, and it gets challenging. Just the mechanics of trying to go backwards with the rule requirements. But I think if you're talking about program requirements with PHB, that might be a slightly different kind of scenario. So again, open to the suggestion and the comment, and we can talk to our colleagues at the Housing Bureau about that.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I know it's very very nuanced and complicated. Just giving our feedback on these things. Thank you so much.
Appreciate that.
I do see a question in the chat.
Great. Yeah, so Matthew has asked, what were some of the peer cities looked at for the bonuses? You can find the detailed list of that in our appendices for the report, but we looked at what we consider our economic peers. Prosper Portland has a list of peer cities, so that includes, apologies, San Diego, Sacramento, Minneapolis, Denver, Raleigh, Seattle, a neighborhood rather than a peer. And then apologies, I think I might
Atlanta.
have missed Atlanta. Yes, we have about 12 that we reviewed.
Oh, thanks, Wing. Wing just dropped, I think, the link to our appendix in the chat.
We do have some time. I like to take a beat before we decide to close early, though. So I would say we can hang out for a few minutes, and if people have additional questions, they can raise their hand or drop in the chat. Otherwise, I have provided links to email for further questions and information, and to submit an actual public comment on the discussion draft. There's a link in there as well.
Not knowing the full scope of everyone who's in the room, we'll just say we're really looking for feedback in general about if the incentives and the requirements are really right-sized from your perspective, if there are other changes that we should be looking at to make these bonuses more possible to use, and we want them to be used and have the greatest impact both for developers and also in terms of the public benefit. So really open to any feedback you all might have either here or over the Map App comments.
Well, the facilitator tactic is to give it 7 seconds. And I think we've exceeded that. So I think that with the thumbs up from the core team here, we can close early and give folks some time back. Does that feel right to everyone? Great.
Yeah, and again, our contact information is in there. If it's not a comment you want to provide through the Map App, you just want to reach out to staff, you can ask us questions as well.
Great. And I'll just read out loud a comment in the chat. Appreciate the focus on increasing 3-bedroom development. That's a comment I've heard from families frequently over the years. Thank you all. And on that, I do want to remind folks that the discussion draft closes on March 23rd. So make sure you get your comments in by then. Great. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your days.
Thank you.
Thank you.